Welcome to the Squared Circle Jerks podcast. I am Mike, and we don't have Byron today. Byron's computer has developed some problems with cooling, and as a result, he's let out of commission. Should be back for the next episode, though. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the Elimination Chamber. We're going to talk about NXT. We're going to talk about TNA Impact Wrestling, the Uncaged pseudo special show, I guess. Let's start it off with the Elimination Chamber. I didn't watch the pre-show, so I will not comment anything there. We did have the women's elimination tag team chamber match up first. I thought there was actually a lot of good things about this match. I think the winners being Bayley and Sasha Banks is a very good idea. As lost as that storyline has become, the longer it's gone on, it still I think was good to get them the win here. They are the inaugural champions. They're two people who absolutely deserve it. They've done a tremendous amount for women's wrestling and advanced it. Even though I have, more so with Sasha, I have problems because I do believe that she pushes beyond the pace that she can safely do, and that leads to a tremendous amount of injuring herself, which is not good. But at the same time, it's really just not good for her career. More saying, not really injuring other people, particularly. So, there is that. So that was good, and I thought the match in general was pretty good. Actually, we get Sonya Deville pulling off a couple nice moves. Her and Mandy Rose working really well as a team. Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan worked very well as a team. Didn't really get a lot of Tamia and Nia Jax. And the Iconics, and we didn't get a lot of Naomi and Carmella. We did get the continuation of the Mandy Rose Naomi storyline, which I'm not really a fan of particularly, just because I don't know. It feels like, in all seriousness, if Naomi's husband would just ignore Mandy Rose, the thing would die. Like there was, I guess that's the thing, is like they kind of tried to. I guess what it comes down to is I just don't think these kind of storylines really particularly work because you're on TV. Like, that's not hidden. It's not in any way particularly believable that, like, if you're married to Naomi, be like, oh, no, I totally just going to go off with Mandy Rose here on camera. That's not going to backfire on me at all. And just, I don't know, just silly. So I'm not really digging the storyline, but they stuck with it. It played a role in this match. Anyways, in terms of entries, it was Bayley and Banks versus Rose and Deville to start off with. Riot Squad came in. I did think it was kind of interesting that Liv Morgan got to slap Sonya Deville literally into unconsciousness, it seems. Like, they sold her slaps hard, despite being, like, one of the smallest women in the match. Interesting idea. Have they been doing that on TV? I don't know. Haven't been watching, so maybe that's why it plays into that. The Iconics came in. This was probably the down moment of the match. The Iconics kind of tried to come and pin everyone. All the other 6 women are down. They couldn't get 3 counts. They start arguing with the refs. And you know how I dislike stupid baby faces? I also dislike stupid heels. Because you're not going to get that. Like there is no point in arguing the count in this situation. You have a golden opportunity to eliminate some people, and you're wasting it. And the other thing about the Iconics I don't like is too much screaming, too much knitting. And again, and I've said this with a number of, like, call it hot famous girl gimmicks over the years. Why are you a wrestler? Like, that's the thing that I don't get. Like, they seem afraid a lot of the time. They seem to be there to launch a modeling or an acting or a singing career that doesn't really make any sense. Also, Billie Kay is good at one thing, and that is kicking people. So I don't really know why she holds people for Peyton Royce to do kicks on their double team moves. Doesn't really make a lot of sense in that regard. Had the hiccups, so you'll hear me drinking a little bit. Naomi and Mella were next in. We ended up with basically the same thing, just with like less annoyingness. And then in the end, after Mandy and Naomi had her bit, we wound up with like a kind of neat double roll up jackknife pin by the Iconics on Naomi to eliminate them. That was pretty good actually. So good work there. The big Samoans came in. They kind of got monster spots for a little bit, and including like taking out the Iconics with a double Samoan drop for like both of them, like stereo Samoan drops, I should say, not double. And we also eliminated. They also got to eliminate the Riot Squad with a big splash earlier on in the match. Like all the girls kind of went to the top of the pod, and then nothing really happened. So like that, I would have gotten rid of. That's like Chekhov's pod, I guess. You kind of, if you're gonna go up there and you're gonna take the time and you're gonna slow the match down, I need a spot off of it, and they did not deliver in this regard. And there's gonna be a similar comment about the men's match. So not just the ladies. Nia Jax wound up taking herself out when she like pounces the pod. I don't like this spot in hindsight, and we'll talk about it in the men's match, because this was one of two things that I'm gonna say are negatives about this match that are only negatives because of what happened in the men's match. But in the end, you got everyone pinning Tamina to eliminate the two Samoans, and we got the two starting teams have gone coast to coast facing off. In the end, we get a kind of like this really good like backstabber belly to Bailey thing for a near fall. It was broken up. It was good, although DeVille did also kind of kick out, which was not particularly amazing. And this is where that pod spot was that I was talking about earlier. And in the end, DeVille tapped out to like a hybrid omoplata gogaplata from Banks. Like a bank statement, but not a bank statement. You know what I mean? And nice innovation. The right team won. I thought the action was largely pretty good, except for like that bit dominated by the Iconics. You did have the pod spot that didn't really go to anything, and then some things I'll talk about later. But like, I thought this was pretty good, and like I was the one who was saying this shouldn't be the main event because I didn't think it would be that good of a match. Sadly, I kind of probably do think it should have been the main event now, but that says, to be honest, some negative things about the men's match, which we'll get to later. Miz and Shane lost their tag team titles to the Usos after announcing that Miz is having a second child, which continues this thing. If you make a big announcement and it's good things, you will lose. So just don't announce your joy. Do not announce your joy to the world on WWE TV. That's how this works. Usos as your new champions, perfectly fine with that. Although I thought that the Miz and Shane thing could have gone on a little bit longer and built more to a proper feud, because I sense that's where we're going. There was a little thing later on in the night where they definitely aren't on the same page. There's a lot that this storyline can do. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. Finn Balor won the IC title off of Bobby Lashley in a handicap match where basically he got largely destroyed by Lashley and then pinned Lio Rush. Didn't like this. Because you're just... What I didn't like about this is that it was like so telegraphed. There was a promo earlier on the night where the one of the interview bots was asking Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush if like Leo's the weak link, if like that's the problem, and it's like, so Lio Rush is gonna get pinned, and that's how this is gonna be. Like, didn't really. Also, the fact that it was a tag match also made it like, why would Lashley just? Because they also tease that like Lashley didn't trust Lio Rush to like pull his weight. Then just don't tag him in. How's that sound? Just treat it as a singles match where Leo's at the side there. I don't know. We got a Charlotte Flair promo. No idea why. Oh, Lashley just destroyed Rush after the match, which is going to make something later on the night not make a tremendous amount of sense either. In the end, this basically just set Becky to come up and beat up Charlotte and Ronda with a crutch because Ronda basically squashed Ruby Riott, which is a shame because using Ruby Riott to get squashed is depressing. She's a fantastic worker, and don't get me wrong, like I kind of like that this is a squash match. Like it puts Ronda over huge. I just would have used a different girl. And probably wouldn't have had it on a pay-per-view because that was kind of the problem here is that up until this point in the match or of the night, you just had a squash match. You had the Balor thing, which was really not a pay-per-view quality thing. Miz and Shane versus the Usos was okay. And then the Elimination Chamber, I guess, would be a proper pay-per-view quality. But yeah, and the other thing is that it doesn't particularly get better from this point onwards. We wound up with Baron Corbin versus Brawny the Strowman. No DQ match. Got some kendo sticks in this, but, largely Braun, clearly the superior wrestler, which is perfectly fine. Puts Baron Corbin through a table. Drew McIntyre comes out with a chair. Bobby Lashley comes out from the chair from behind. Well. Shield bomb through 2 tables for Braun. I don't like this because of a couple of things. When Baron had power, and if I'm wrong on this and he's got power on Raw again, you can inform me of that. But as far as I know, he lost his power on Raw. So why is he still coming out in like the kind of corporate stooge gear? And why the hell would McIntyre and Lashley help him? And why would Lashley be overly interested in relying on anyone anyways? He just had Lio Rush cost him his title. It doesn't really make any sense for anyone's motivations here. And why were no faces out here to make the save? Because Baron made plenty of enemies again when he had the power. So yeah, I don't like anything about this. That's really problematic. We had the Shane and Miz thing, and then Lacey Evans came out to do a runway walk, and I don't know why that was on a pay-per-view in any way, shape, or form. That's a Raw or a SmackDown segment. In fact, I wouldn't even be terribly happy about it there. But on a pay-per-view? What the hell? So Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe start us off in the Elimination Chamber for the men. Bryan just kind of runs away, and they're trying to sell it like this is a really smart move. He's going to wait for someone else to come in. The only problem is that a lot of the guys in the match don't like Daniel Bryan, so why would they join him to 2v1 Joe? Like, it doesn't actually make any sense. I was actually bored by Joe versus Daniel Bryan. What the hell? Kofi Kingston was your next one in. And here we ended up going to the top of the pods again to just get a trust fall out of Kofi. That's super weak. That's garbage. It's not worse than doing nothing, but it's pretty damn close. That's all I have to say on that. AJ comes in. AJ ends up getting to eliminate Joe, which is disappointing because, man, they handle Joe really, really well until he gets into the main event scene. And then every time he's been there, they have really failed to capitalize on what this man can do because this man is a fantastic wrestler. He is the complete package. I don't know. Jeff Hardy was in next, and I just have him just the thing. Why bother doing the whole random lady thing if you know it's going to be Jeff? Because we know Orton's last. So, yeah, I don't know. Hardy gives us our big spot off the top of the pod where he goes for a swanton bomb. Goes for a swanton bomb off the top rope on AJ Styles. Or off the top of the pod onto the top rope on AJ Styles, and immediately gets pinned by Daniel Bryan with a running knee. So we're down to 4. Really orchestrated suplex Tower of Doom spot where AJ suplexes them, and he's having to sell like he's got himself stuck in the Tree of Woe, but he was out of the Tree of Woe. Randy Orton comes in and eliminates him with an RKO. And then probably the highlight of the match actually was the kind of like super reaction slam by Randy Orton. He just kind of like realizes that Daniel Bryan's running at him and hits a nice scoop power slam. But then he eats trouble in paradise, gets eliminated by Kofi. So go down to Bryan and Kofi, and this is again back to this is where the two things that from the women's match that became bad later in the night come into play. You have Bryan going the distance here. You have Kofi going pretty much distance. He was the third man in. There wasn't a lot of action before he got in there. So that kind of ruins what Sasha and Bayley did by going the distance. It's a reuse spot. It's like if the number one entrant in the Women's Rumble were to win the match, and then the number one entrant in the Men's Rumble were to, also win the match. It's, get a little bit more creative, tell some different stories, work some different angles. And they did not do that here. And then the second thing was that Bryan and Kofi are actually having a pretty damn good match. I thought Kofi was the MVP of this match. When Kofi goes for a bulldog, and he just goes face first in the pod, but he survives after that, and it kind of depowers like the effect of Nia Jax going face first into the pod, because it's more or less the same spot. Actually, I thought Kofi's was more brutal because the pod didn't break, so he just like ran into a wall and was off of it. Like that was a nasty spot. In the end, Daniel Bryan does retain, because I guess that was the other problem with this match, is that Kofi Kingston, who was a late replacement for Mustafa Ali, is in your final two, and I'm supposed to buy that you really think he's gonna win. Like I guess like kayfabe wise, sure, but you murdered kayfabe. With what we have in terms of knowing, like no, it's like Ali got hurt, we're gonna put Kofi in there and he's gonna win. No, that's not how this should. It's not how this ever works. So I'm not buying it. So overall, I gotta give a thumbs down to the pay-per-view, because like I said, I enjoyed the women's elimination match. I enjoyed parts of the men's elimination match, and I didn't really enjoy anything else. So that's a significant problem for a pay-per-view. Definitely not worth any money you paid for it. There you go. NXT was better. We had Donovan Dijak, who I will refer to as Donovan Dijak because I find his name ridiculous, and I say this as a Serbian / Croatian. Where the Vich name comes from. Like, that's, it's still dumb, because Donovan Dijak is an awesome name, and like, okay, if you want to call him Dominic Dijak, go ahead, I guess. I don't really have a problem with that, but yeah. Hell, the most famous Croatian / Serbian MMA fighter is Mirko Krokop. Note that he calls himself Mirko Krokop, not Mirko Filipovic. There you go. In the end of this one, Dijak got the win with Feast Your Eyes. Got a good chant for that as well. It was a pretty good match with Thorne targeting his arm. There was a top rope corkscrew from Dijak. That's pretty freaking awesome to the outside. Do that again, please. Those who are not necessarily recognize the name Shane Thorne, he is one half of the Mighty. And his partner has, of course, gone back to Australia because they have been horrendously misused. And that's kind of all there is to it. There was a brief time where they were seemingly using them correctly, and then that went really downhill. We got a Undisputed Era promo, basically announcing that Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish are back together as a tag team, so Roddy's going to go for some singles gold. I'm fine with that. The Red Dragon is a fantastic tag team. Roddy's an amazing wrestler, so let him do his thing. They talk about how they will finish where they started despite the speed bumps, and that Ricochet's in over his head. At some point, and this is going to come up in the main event, this faction has to alter their gimmick in a way. Like, there's got to be an evolution here, because they're not the hot shit they were when they came in. They're not winning. They're kind of jumping people and standing tall at the end of the match, but they're not winning. We had a Sky Pirates thing, which basically was just here to tease the fact that Bianca Belair is not happy with them. Io wants to go for the title shot. That's my title shot, says Bianca. I'm undefeated. I push Shayna to the limit. talk about a character that needs a freaking adjustment. Bianca Blair's is maybe the one that needs the biggest adjustment of any character in the history of NXT. Like that's where we're at. Anyways, Humberto Carrillo and Stacey Irwin Jr. are out there to meet Cassius Ohno, who comes out, and it's clearly not meant to be him out there. You know, he's cutting a promo about Full Sail making him sick, and he's out of here. He's gonna go show somewhere he can show his greatness. So I'm hoping Kings of Wrestling. Keith Lee comes out, levels him, has a great promo where he talks. He's like, "Oh no, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. I could have come out here and punched you in the dangly bits like you didn't me." Keith Lee, awesome. That was probably the best part of this show, to be honest. And there were some other good things on the show, so I want to make that clear. Don't let the door hit you on your way out. And Street Profits come out, have a little bit of moment for him, and then have a very good match with Carrillo and Stacey Irwin Jr., where Irwin Jr. and Carrillo got to show off some very high-level athleticism, some great promise. The Street Profits put together probably their best match. Their body language, their interactions, getting much better. And I hope for the best. It's just kind of taking this team a little bit longer than I would have liked to develop into something. Mind you, that could be up to NXT because they cut a promo about how they're coming out against the War Raiders, kind of going a little bit heel, and then Britt and Bruiser and Bartel and Eichner are out there, and we brawl, and the War Raiders come out to say there's a lot of talking about our belts and no fighting, and then the Undisputed Era ambushed them, and this was kind of a mess because, I mean, you've got the Street Profits who are coming off a loss to the Forgotten Sons and then a win over what is a jobber tag team. You've got Eichner and Bartel who are coming off a loss to Britt and Bruiser who are out there. There's really only two directions you can go title shot wise. It's either to go back to a rematch between the Era and the Raiders or to give it to Britt and Bruisers. So bringing any other tag teams into this whole equation, it doesn't really work. Which is a shame because I said a lot of nice things about the Street Profits here, and now I'm saying that they shouldn't be in the title picture because they shouldn't yet. You can get them there, but they're not there yet. We had a Gargano vignette, and then we had Tainara Conti versus Aaliyah. I'm very big on what Tainara Conti can be, and she showed some of it in this match. There was a nice flying armbar. Just generally, things are coming together well. She does need to stop selling things like hip tosses, though, because for those who are unfamiliar, their deal with her is basically that she's a judo black belt and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and a lot of that is like hips takedowns. And to have Aaliyah, who has no aforementioned background in the matter, and I haven't really seen do much of that in her matches, it undermines the character because there's not really a lot else to Conti's character. Vanessa Bourne was out at ringside this whole time, so she was obviously going to cost someone the match. Admittedly, you didn't really know who because there really wasn't a storyline for that, but it ended up being Tainara Conti. Aaliyah taps her out with a Kimura and some heel strikes. I like the concept of her submission finisher, but the heel strikes need to be a lot better for me to really buy it. And again, it's also the sort of thing that you shouldn't really have Conti doing. Like you shouldn't really be having the black belt grappler tap out to, again, someone who, like, if she taps out to Baszler, sure, that's fine. Hell, if she taps out to Marina Shafir, that's fine. But Leah, again, kind of ruining the like one-note gimmick that she's got. Baszler and the Horsewomen come out. They kill everyone. I thought they missed an opportunity to induct Conti into the Horsewoman because she would have fit really well. And then we had the Velveteen Dream do a vignette, and then we had our main event of Adam Cole and Ricochet. Match is perfectly serviceable. Excellent. Ricochet wins despite being on one leg from getting his knee busted up against the post. But this goes back to what I was talking about before with the Era. They lose. Sure, they come in, they jump them, they beat him up, they beat Aleister Black up when he comes to try and help them. And they stand tall. But they are celebrating losses on a consistent basis. Like, sure, you're beating people up afterwards. But number one, at some point we should get some kind of face thing going against you, which we've had, and then they've kind of forgotten about them. Like, they jumped the War Raiders earlier in the show, and the War Raiders did not come out to help here. So, just kind of failed booking, to be honest, in that regard. Not a good main event from a booking standpoint. Then we had the Uncaged show for Impact Wrestling, the big four-way for the title or for the Impact World Heavyweight Championship. We opened this up with ladies, though. Knockouts Championship, Taya Valkyrie defending against Tessa Blanchard. I thought the street fight was pretty good. We had some interesting stuff with Taya's shirt getting ripped off, which is a tribute to, I believe, Paraguayo, who is, of course, deceased. So that got some heat from the crowd. We got some busted open the hard way. I could watch these two wrestle a lot, and there's not really a lot of, like, wow descriptive spots I can give you, but do yourselves a favor and go watch this match. Taya did retain the belt. Team Impact had a promo here where Sami Callihan declared himself the captain, had some words with 88 words and follow ball. He's got to go take some care of some business, so something with Rich Swann, of course, is generally how that goes. Eli Drake cut one of the promos of the night, talking about team spirit and money, which is great. Ethan Page and Willie Mack had a match with Willie Mack winning by a standing moonsault. This was perfectly good, and probably the highlight of it was Ethan Page getting his nipples twerked and selling it like it was the most painful thing on the planet. That was great. I fully enjoyed that. It was amazing. Killer Cross cut a promo about how it's 3-on-1 effectively. All of them have beat Johnny. When your mind wanders, it can be assaulted. Everyone pays the toll, and I'm not going away. And in the meantime, you see Willie Mack in the background get followed by the Chris into the backstage area. Nothing really came of that, but probably this explains why Mack doesn't get involved later, is what I'm imagining. And we may get something on that next week. Team AAA cut a promo, and it was all in Spanish. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. Then we had the Sammy and the Rich Swann thing, where Sami Callihan calls Rich Swann fake news, basically. And, get your ass out here. There's only two ways this goes, the easy way or the hard way. And he attacks Rich Swann and pile drives him on the ramp. So, we continue to get more with this whole feud. I kind of like it. It's kind of a shame that he's not from Ohio, because that would play into it even more. Especially considering how many wrestlers are from Ohio. Seriously, if you've ever looked up how many pro wrestlers from Ohio, it's amazing. So there is that. We'll continue with that one, and then we had an LAX promo where Conan is not happy with them losing the belt, the shit talk. He's getting them a rematch. They got to take it seriously. Continuing it on, we had more with Dark Alley and Su Yung having a bit of a thing where they get freaked out when Rosemary appears in the background and may or may not have grabbed Alley. So that continues on. Scarlett Bordeaux talks about having her in-ring debut in Vegas. Kind of looking forward to that. And then finally we had the Fatal 4-Way. Killer Cross versus Moose versus Cage versus Impact Champion Johnny Impact. I thought this was a really good match. Played up perfectly. The timing was amazing. The action was good. I have one real problem. And that was the fact that Moose and Cross turned on Moose really too early on in the match. Like, really too early in the match. Like, that should have been, like, the last, like, little bit. To play into the whole scorpion, the scorpion and the frog analogy that Cross had. I think it was last week, or might have been the week before that. Cage ends up drill clawing Moose. Cross manages to break it up, gets drill clawed himself, but Impact in the meantime does Starship Pain on Moose, simultaneous pin, but Impact was there first. He retains, pinning Moose, and Cage is pissed, and I don't blame him because he continues to get kind of boned out of the title. I don't have a lot in the way of news to talk about. So today's episode, pretty short because we don't have Byron. I hope you enjoyed it, though. I know you didn't enjoy it as much without him here, but he'll be back next week, and we'll be covering the usual stuff then. So enjoy, everybody.